Over the past year of construction, Keystone Wilds has made massive strides towards one goal, finally opening our doors to the public. The wait has been agonizing, and anticipation surrounding opening day has even our most experienced members of staff a little bit on edge. Putting it lightly, there's simply no time for nerves now. Everything that we've built, from Keystone Park all the way to Keystone Wilds, every single species that we've helped, and every viewer that we've reached, has all led to this moment. Thankfully, our members of staff have always stepped up when it matters the most. From Keystone Park's avian flu outbreak, to the recent injury of one of our sable antelope, we've been tested before and we're going to be tested after. We've helped and rehabilitated so many animals over the years that opening a zoo should almost feel like a walk in the park in comparison. Our opening day roster is rather strong, with 4 species yet to be revealed as well. Compare our current progress to how Keystone Park looked when it first opened, and the difference truly is night and day. Keystone Wilds houses a variety of species from all across the globe, and guests have already caught glimpses of several of them through our 24/7 habitat streams, or even by paying attention to the available merchandise. There's a special sticker for each species in the zoo, and reports show that they look excellent on a water bottle. The gift shop was actually just given a fresh coat of paint, so I highly recommend you check it out. The link is in the description. Easily the most popular live stream so far has been that of our Chinese pangolin. That's because in the coming weeks we're actually expecting a Who's on call? After an after-hours call to action, our head vet was both delighted and shocked. Our Chinese pangolin had just given birth to a healthy baby girl a fair bit before schedule. She's gonna need a name, so to help celebrate the near completion of the first phase of Keystone Wilds, we're gonna be hosting another community vote. Check the posts tab for the poll. It went live the second the video released and will last exactly 1 week. The newborn pangolin... Wait a minute. There is no way that's real. I guess you really do learn something new every day. Once the situation was firmly in control, we turned our focus to Scout, our proud new mother. Pangolin are incredibly prone to stress, especially first-time mothers like her, but Scout truly has stepped up in this situation. She's making for an excellent mother, teaching her panga pup the basics of how to function as a pangolin. As a critically endangered species that's notoriously difficult to breed in captivity, births such as this are exceptionally rare. This is a momentous occasion in Keystone history, right alongside our first ever captive birth, Bobby the Beaver, the arrival of Bear the Anteater to Keystone Wilds, and even the completion of Keystone Park in general. We'll definitely have a lot more updates in the coming weeks, including the name of the newborn panga pup, but for now we're trusting Scout to do what she does best, keep her baby safe and teach her not how to just survive, but thrive. In other news, the strange behavior we've been observing in our lar gibbon finally has a concrete cause, and our latest hypothesis was absolutely correct. They're simply bored. Primates are among the hardest species to keep mentally stimulated, which is exactly why the gibbon enclosure was built as the first thing the guests are going to see upon entry. The problem is that in the 2 years since their habitat's construction and their stay at Keystone Wilds, there have been absolutely 0 guests to walk through our gates. Gibbon are highly observant animals and have incredible eyesight. The constant movement of people will play a huge role in their stimulation once we officially open. Until that day comes, though, our team has spoiled them with even more enrichment items and climbing opportunities. It's a temporary fix, but the true solution is getting closer by the hour. Keystone Wilds is set to finally open as soon as the African expansion is completed, and that day is finally within reach. Nearly everything outside of Baobab Safari is polished and ready for inspection, and Baobab itself is almost finished as well. Once the safari is completed, Keystone Wilds truly is going to be ready for the guests. Baobab Safari is a project of unprecedented scale in the Keystone brand, with hundreds of acres of wild terrain. Walking it would be nearly impossible, so guests are going to board one of our newly designed 4x4 safari vehicles. They're built to handle both rough and rugged terrain, while keeping both the guests as well as our animals on site safe. As you can probably tell, there are sections of the safari where animals can walk directly onto or even across the path. That can be extremely dangerous, but our staff have been training non-stop, running mock tours, rehearsing emergency procedures, and perfecting their tour routes. They're doing a great job and growing more confident by the hour, and in this reserve, that confidence certainly will be tested, because here anything can happen. That's what makes Baobab Safari so special. No 2 tours are the exact same. Some animals might wander close to the path, others may stay hidden in the dense foliage. Riders are truly going to have to keep their eyes peeled and have their heads on a swivel to see everything we have to offer. Each ride is going to be 100% unique, unpredictable, unforgettable, and that's a guarantee. In case you missed the last episode, we recently expanded Baobab Safari of 3 highly intelligent and social species. After leaving the African savanna, guests will be thrust straight into Section 4 of the ride, Pachyderm Pass, and right at the entrance, you'll meet the first of the species, the mandrill. Our mandrills, Mandy, and Kiko, were both critically injured before being brought to Keystone Wilds by our new and reformed veterinary team. That decision proved to be a good one, as both Mandrill have now made a full recovery. Despite being monkeys, the largest in the world in fact, Mandrills spend most of their time foraging on the forest floor. Mandy and Kiko are no different, and they rarely climb the trees scattered throughout their enclosure. Thankfully, they've adjusted well into life in captivity, and seem to be especially interested in watching the safari vehicles pass by. Like most primates, Mandrill are highly social animals, and now that our pair are officially healthy again, we've begun to expand their troop. After welcoming a new member, their personalities have truly begun to shine through. Hopefully in time, this new family will understand that Keystone Wilds is a safe place, a home where they can thrive in peace. After passing through the Mandrills overpass, guests will then reach the crown jewel of Baobab Safari, and debatably all of Keystone Wilds. You've seen them on our logo since day one. Meet the stars of Pachyderm Pass, our herd of African elephants. Their habitat is immense, filled with subtle environmental storytelling elements before you even see the species themselves. While animals like giraffes have evolved long necks to reach the treetops, elephants rely on sheer strength alone, capable of simply pushing trees over to get what they want. Every single inch of the habitat reflects these natural behaviors and their impact on the ecosystems they help shape. Maya, one of our females, and our bull male Bruce have especially settled beautifully into their new home. At first they were slow and cautious, but that's by design. Elephants truly do never forget. They learn every corner of their territory with astonishing precision, and by now they've probably memorized the location of every rock and log in their massive habitat. The enclosure features three main sections: a lush tropical area near the entrance, a vast arid region of sand, and a deep pool for swimming. Elephants are surprisingly talented swimmers, using their trunks like snorkels to breathe while submerged. Not only are they far and away the smartest species on the reserve, but one of the smartest and most intelligent animals on the planet, even compared to the other brilliant minds in the animal kingdom. That intelligence, combined with their sheer size and curiosity, make them both fascinating as well as a challenge to manage. Farmers in their native homes in Africa face a similar challenge. African elephants are highly curious, but destructive when they get frustrated. After decades of research, the farmers have discovered something remarkable. Elephants are absolutely petrified of bees. By mimicking that natural deterrent, we found a humane solution that keeps our elephants safely within view of the guest, while maintaining a safe distance to ensure that nobody gets hurt. While our safari vehicles are durable and can withstand some minor damages, the sheer power and strength of an elephant is truly never to be underestimated. And safari riders have nothing to worry about. They're not real bees, just subtle sound effects. Just don't tell the elephants that. After the climax of the safari, guests will then encounter a small flock of greater flamingo, including Pink and Lady. They're a vibrant contrast to the calm strength of the elephants, vocal, social, and very full of energy. Their circular habitat centers around a large foraging pool, regularly stocked with the shrimp that give the flamingos their iconic pink hue. Guests are going to be able to see this firsthand, as our newly hatched flamingo chick is still a soft white, but over time her feathers will blush pink as her diet changes. The flamingos won't be the only birds on the reserve for much longer at all, and the elephants actually won't be the only pachyderms either. We've got a lot to do today, and 10 more animals to build homes for. Compared to what's to come though, this is certainly the calm before. Trust me when I say you're not going to want to miss the finale of Baobab Safari, and especially the tour that comes after. If you'd like to further support the ongoing construction and development of Keystone Wilds, consider joining Club Keystone. Members receive early access to videos, and your name will permanently be etched on the wall of donors as a token of our appreciation. If you enjoyed today's episode, please consider subscribing. Your support isn't just appreciated, it's essential. By liking the video, leaving a comment, or even sharing the video with friends, you're helping us grow and reach more and more people who care about wildlife conservation. The channel's growth has been incredible lately, and with confirmation that Planet Zoo 2 is officially in development, you can bet there's more content to come. Today, Keystone Wilds is surprisingly building for our first cat in the entire zoo, the cheetah. As per the IUCN, this is another vulnerable species with a wild population of 6,700. Despite being listed as vulnerable, they have quite a vast habitat range spanning the entire continent of Africa. Luckily for us though, they don't need that much space in each individual habitat, only 705 square meters for one cheetah. Cheetahs are a bit out of the ordinary for a variety of reasons, which we'll surely get into later, but first and foremost, it's a bit odd that the females are actually the solitary ones in the species, and the males tend to team up. Obviously these species are predators, and a majority of their hunting tactics revolves around their sheer speed, so we're going to have to incorporate this into their habitat somehow. Like with most predators, cheetahs don't share any cohabitation, and that's especially important today because right next door to the cheetahs, and actually within their enclosure themselves, are one of their #1 prey species, the common ostrich. This is an abundant bird species, listed as least concern as per the IUCN, and with a wild population that's actually unknown. Typically when this is the case, the species is rather well off. Being the main food source of the cheetah means their habitat and space requirements naturally are going to be relatively similar, and this is the exact case. The ostrich, like most species in the reserve, only need land requirement. They're primarily a social species, and based on their enrichment items, they appear to be rather intelligent. This is the common trait for most birds. Like most African herbivores, they share a wide variety of interspecies enrichment, and today we're going to be capitalizing on the very last one available, the southern white rhinoceros. By looking at their natural habitat, it's obvious why they're called the southern white rhinoceros. And thankfully, just like the ostriches, who they're going to be sharing a habitat with, they only require land, but they need a lot of it. Southern white rhinos are typically solitary animals that do tolerate other members of their species. Males can get rather aggressive towards one another, especially during mating season, so we're only going to be bringing in 3 today, 2 females and a single bull. Rhinos aren't exactly known for their intelligence, so their enrichment items are pretty basic. We're going to be heavily utilizing the mud bath though, as one part of their habitat is going to be extremely arid, and the other half is going to be extremely lush. Typically large solitary species aren't exactly tolerant of others, however the southern white rhinoceros breaks the stereotype and has a lot of cohabitation. Today they're only going to be seeing the ostrich though, and that's for a very good reason that we'll get into later. For now though, let's get to work. Among the animal kingdom, cheetah aren't particularly successful hunters. However, one animal they constantly prey on happens to be the common ostrich. This means we're going to have to separate the cheetah from both the ostrich and the rhinoceros, since those two are cohabitating in the same enclosure. The issue with this, though, is that the cheetah habitat is going to be built right in the middle of a larger habitat to not break guest immersion. In order to safely house all 3 species, we're going to have to get a little bit creative. Like with the majority of the potentially dangerous species on the reserve, digging underground and having guests look down to view them is going to be the play this time. Their habitat though is going to need to be a little different, as to further sell the depth of the pit, we're going to have to build the opposite side up. To do this, we're going to use some very large add-terrain features of varying shapes and sizes, and once we have a rough outline, simply smooth it over using the Smooth Terrain tool. This small mountain is also going to help block the final section from view, and we want that to hit guests out of absolute nowhere. That's next week though, and for now we need to focus on what's right in front of us. Currently that's our cheetah enclosure, and if there's only one thing that you know about cheetahs, it's likely that they're incredibly fast animals, the fastest mammal in the world to be exact. Knowing this, we're going to have to make their habitat with large lanes for them to run uninterrupted without any natural hazards that they could trip on. The way to accomplish this is going to be by building the enclosure on a slight incline and have a section in the middle protruding out. This should give the guests both an ample view of the cheetah when they go on the high ground, but also give the cats some privacy if they choose to chill at the bottom where it's more shaded. In certain ways, today's builds are acting as a culmination of every building technique we've used up until this point during the safari's construction. And just like with many of the builds, we're going to start by lining the foundation of the habitat to make the later steps much easier. What isn't typical is starting at the habitat enrichment items, but the cheetah's enclosure is going to have them placed in very strategic locations. Most felines aren't typically prone to stress. Cheetahs, however, are the extreme exception. In the real world, they're often assigned therapy dogs as buddies just to keep them calm. Funny enough, behind the scenes, I actually did tinker with this. Typically they're golden retrievers or family-oriented dogs like that. I tried the bush dog because it looks relatively similar, but it didn't tend to work out. I ended up cutting it from the episode. Because the cheetahs are so prone to stress, we have to add a ton of different enrichment items into the habitat, more than any other enclosure in the safari, even the African savanna. But remember, we don't want to take guests out of the experience. This is why all of the enrichment items on the high ground are natural, or at least look the part, while the items that can look out of place to the guest are out of their view. The trench we dug out isn't really as deep as I thought it would be, but sometimes a mistake can lead to an opportunity, and I happen to have an interesting idea. Instead of simply leaving it as a trench, later blending it in with rock, we can actually make a very small stream of water down here, which saves us from having to hide an ugly water pipe piece somewhere else in the habitat. Next, we need to line every single side of the habitat with rockwork and foliage. Luckily, this is going to be very easy to do. As we've made so many rock formations throughout all of Baobab Safari, we can quite easily copy and paste over any number of them, and we won't have any repeated textures. The view from the track is quite nice, and the habitat is a perfect distance away to where the guests are going to have a great view and the cheetahs can't escape. But something's missing. Like with all carnivores in the reserve, we're going to have to build a secondary fence on the outside of the habitat to keep an even more dangerous predator at bay. The justice system. Fences like this are equal parts from keeping the animals from escaping, but also keeping the guests from infiltrating, so they're extremely important. Down from the cheetah's perspective, there's no way they can escape this habitat at this point, especially once we add some foliage in. Let's add some now to blend in the fence. We'll use a very basic technique with creosote bushes, and start them off high up to cover the poles of the fence, but gradually sink them lower and lower into the ground to give the guest a better view of the animals. After adding in enough of the bushes and even some aquatic faux rocks, things are finally starting to take shape. However, I think we still need a tree line on the back of the habitat to truly get the scale right. Just like with our rock wall trims, there's absolutely no shortage of trees to borrow from in the rest of the reserve, so this is really easy as well. The foundation of this habitat so far is looking excellent, but what truly makes a build are the fine details within. We have a lot of momentum right now, so let's keep things going at a good pace. This foliage thankfully won't be that challenging, as it's all going to be on the sides of the build, allowing the cheetahs a safe lane to run down the middle. What can, however, be challenging is blending foliage into a build that doesn't yet exist. What I mean by this is that half of the rhino and ostrich section is going to be arid, more akin to our elephant habitat from last episode. The other half is going to be more or less what we've been doing already today. To blend the two habitats together, we can use dry variations of similar plants to give a natural transition between the microbiomes. After the exterior blending is completed, we can now focus our attention on the inside, and step 1 is always the same: buffalo grass. Equally important as the buffalo grass, placing aquatic faux rocks frequently also helps capture that sense of realism. From here, I always like to detail up bodies of water. No need for anything special this time though, as a guest would have to be standing on top of one of our vehicles to even see it. I like to use common cattail reeds and plants you'd find in the wild of the region to help add to that sense of realism. It's a bit confusing of a situation. We're trying to mimic Africa, but we're not actually located in Africa, so we don't want to go too far off the African theming, otherwise it'll be less immersive by being overly immersive. And if you're confused too, we're on the same page. We can use the same building technique of blending in the dry variants to further bolster the look of the running path, and even add some roots to the rocks to make them look a little bit more detailed as well. I like to add those relatively close to trees to give off the illusion that the roots have grown down the sides of the cliff faces. Detail doesn't really have to be overwhelming or overcomplicated. I highly recommend getting used to and customizing your very own foliage palette that you can add fast and make look to your building standard. It truly does speed up the process. Until we potentially get a terrain brush and Planet Zoo 2, it's the best advice I've got. At this point, there's only 2 things missing in the habitat, and luckily our staff have just notified us that that's about to change really soon. With the final inspections being passed, let's prepare for the arrival of our cheetahs. Both of our cheetahs thankfully arrived at Keystone Wilds in great health and with a curious mind. They spent the first few hours of their time on the reserve exploring around their new enclosure, and once they deemed it safe enough to relax, they did just that. It surprised our staff just how relaxed they actually were, breaking their stressful stereotype. Hopefully this behavior continues as we run our practice tours through their territory. We won't be running any vehicles until the rest of the habitat is complete around them, so thankfully the cheetah have plenty of time to adjust. Cheetahs break all carnivore stereotypes and almost act more like house cats than a big cat, which actually checks out because cheetahs aren't technically a part of the big cat family. Our new pair of feline are sure to draw a huge crowd to the safari for guests, and we did an excellent job with their habitat. Let me know what you think about it in the comments below. Let's give our cheetah pair some time to get used to their new home and situation, while we continue construction and giving the cheetahs a more interesting surrounding to observe. While some areas in Baobab Safari blow you away with the landscaping and foliage work, other areas have those aspects take a back seat and allow you to get an uninterrupted view at our wildlife. This habitat is going to have that mindset. The southern white rhinoceros is far and away the largest animal on the reserve that's able to get within touching distance of the vehicles, and the common ostriches that they share the space with aren't exactly small animals. Since both of these species are so large, the habitat by default is going to be sizable too. Just like with the smaller cheetah enclosure though, the first step is the exact same. We need to line the entire side of the habitat with rocks and foliage found elsewhere on the reserve. By copying and pasting other aspects of the safari, we're effectively maximizing our chances that the build is going to flow together naturally, since we're just reusing other pieces from elsewhere. If you use the same parts twice, it has to look like it belongs. What makes this habitat stand out amongst the rest is that the rhino and ostrich are going to be able to make use of some high ground, and they should be able to do it quite often, since it's the only shade in their enclosure. We're also going to be adding in a more arid portion to the habitat specifically for the southern white rhinoceros, as just like our elephants, and even our hippopotamus, they too enjoy a good mud bath to help keep cool. The habitat is closer to being finished than it actually looks, because looking at it right now, it's very under-detailed. Does anybody know a type of grass that we can place everywhere and make things look 10 times better? After placing the equivalent of an entire ecosystem's worth of buffalo grass, the next most important plant by far in this habitat is easily the creosote bush. The reason that this bush is so crucial to the enclosure is that it's similar enough to the buffalo grass to blend in with it, but it also bridges the awkward gaps in between the rocks and the grass, making everything flow together much more naturally. The reason that we're using this much buffalo grass in this habitat is because the southern white rhinoceros is the world's largest pure grazer, and knowing this, it's up to us to give them enough grass to graze on. This is also a good setup for the grand finale of Baobab Safari coming next week, as the more basic habitat beforehand is going to make what comes next absolutely more special. This habitat came together really quickly, but I'm actually very happy with how the penultimate enclosure turned out. Basic doesn't always have to mean boring, and we have the cheetah enclosure halfway through everything to break up any repetition. I can't wait to get some tour vehicles on the tracks to test the routes. It's almost complete. But before we get to that, we have to get the animals in here. Our southern white rhinoceros were the first to enter the enclosure, as they needed to get comfortable with each other before adding a new species to the mix. The three rhinoceros slowly explored the habitat over the remainder of the day, and once they appeared completely comfortable, the ostriches were then brought into the mix. Admittedly, at first, the ostrich were a bit timid around the much larger pachyderms. They're significantly faster than the rhinoceros, though, so if they were ever uncomfortable, they could simply run away. Our male common ostrich portrayed some very interesting behavior, to say the least, as he spent a ton of time staring down his biggest predator in the wild. Thankfully, it doesn't bother our two cheetah at all, as they much prefer having the food brought to them. Seeing the final product of a cohabitation enclosure is always a special sight. Watching two unrelated species live in complete harmony is simply amazing. Thankfully for everybody involved, the rhino and the ostrich seemingly get along quite well, mostly staying out of each other's path. There's not too many things on the planet that would want to be in a rhino's path, but I can think of at least one. I'm incredibly happy with the landscaping work that we did around the greater flamingo habitat. If you take this and compare it to what it looked like at the beginning of the episode, it's truly night and day. And remember, the outside of the flamingo habitat technically doesn't even start the rhino and ostrich enclosure. That's going to be beyond this fence that's coming up straight ahead. As the buffalo grass and creosote bushes grow a little bit more dense, you know you're getting closer to the largest grazer in the world. And unfortunately, we're still going to have a little bit of work to do off camera. There are some buildings still that can protrude through the tree line, but let's not worry about that right now. It looks like on the right we're actually getting extremely lucky, as we can see a couple of the common ostrich on the high ground coming down, and surprisingly it looks like they're somehow interacting with one of the southern white rhinoceros. Based on our first impressions, it looks like that both of the species much prefer the more lush and tropical side of the enclosure. Nobody appears to be on the arid side right now, although they could be on the high ground. It's a little bit of a blind spot, built purposefully. We'll let the rest of the ride play out, see if you can spot the remaining animals. There should be 2 ostrich and 2 rhino left. Until next time, Kingpin out. See you guys next week with the finale of Baobab Safari. It's going to be a good one. Just to confirm, we have the green light to carry on Operation Pride Rock? Green light.